Picture it. Canada, 2026. You're thinking to yourself, hey, I really want to try out this YouTube thing. It's been 5 years of seeing new gear come and go. You think to yourself, let's do some research. So then you go on your computer, you watch hours of reviews, you keep doing your research, you take your notes, and then you realize, what difference does it make? I literally only have one camera and one lens that I'm using right now. So why can't I go out and about and try out new gear and new cameras? Over the past 10 days, I've been using the Nikon Z5II, Z5II, that launched last summer as my very first full-frame mirrorless camera. But will I hop on the trend and switch to Nikon? I don't know. I say Nikon. Or did I experience a few things with this camera that make me want to stick with my Sony and stick with the Sony way? Let's find out together. First up, let's talk about the camera itself and what it brings to people like me who are just getting started in the creator space and want something with a little bit more oomph behind it, a little bit more horsepower. So starting with the sensor on this bad boy, it is a 24 megapixel backside illuminated sensor with up to 7.5 stops of stabilization, which is great because I don't have a gimbal. It also does 4K 30 and 4K 60 recording, which is huge for me. But let's put this back on for safety. But something that I'm not used to with this camera is the fact that with its full frame sensor, it can do 12-bit raw video recording. Now, when you shoot in raw video, that's going to be a massive file size. I just shot in either N-Log with 10-bit, or I've been shooting with their picture controls that you can have as well. Think of it as recipes or picture profiles. Everybody has their own name. Now, even though I'm not holding the ZV-E10 right in front of me right now, since it's on the tripod recording this actually isn't a one-to-one comparison right now, because that wouldn't be fair at all. This is all about what to expect when you make the jump from APS-C to your very first full frame camera, as well as my thoughts entirely on using Nikon for the very first time. You see, during my last gig, I was surrounded by Sonys, Fujifilms, and even a couple of Aris that cost more than my paycheck, but never a Nikon, which was kind of odd. Therefore, my time with all of the Sonys, I got to know the ins and outs quite a bit, and that's partially the reason why I chose the ZV-E10 as my first camera. Before I dive into this, let's just quickly talk about those quick flaws about the ZV-E10. The Gen 2 fixes the biggest one, which is actually the mode button on the top of this camera. It now goes from a single press button to a rocker switch, which is incredibly helpful because there have been many a time that I try and switch between movie, S&Q, picture, that's the order it goes in, and you hit picture and then you end up right back in movie, or you go to movie and you end up in S&Q. It just sucks. I hate it. I'm so glad they fixed it, but it's still incredibly annoying. Now, since the ZV-E10 does not have a viewfinder, the screen you would expect to be a little bit better. This one is incredibly small, doesn't get too bright in the daylight, even with the sunny weather mode, so a lot of the times I am just using my phone to monitor. Which then brings me to problem number 3. This one doesn't support the Sony Creator app or the official Sony Monitor and Control app. Nope, I use the Monitor Plus app because it's the only thing that has a stable connection, shows me everything, and works. The next complaint being a tiny camera with a tiny screen, you'd expect, okay, a tiny battery should last pretty long. No, the Sony ZV-E10 uses the old FW50 batteries because these things die fast. I have this camera plugged in to a power bank, otherwise it would be straight cooked. It also likes to overheat with these batteries, so there's even a fan on the back of that camera as well, even though it's only about 22 degrees in here. My biggest gripe of all is that Sony, at least for this camera, they have this motto of not wanting to update their cameras unless they absolutely have to. Remember how long it took for the A7S III to get its updates?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Right now, do I have the update to have a vertical menu, which the ZV-E10 Gen 2 has? No, I don't get that. Do I get an update for the Monitor and Control app or the Sony Creators app? Nope, not for me. Or do I get to have the new Sony menus and the new layout that makes it a lot easier to navigate through instead of having to constantly scroll and scroll and scroll? Oh no, gosh forbid. No, that doesn't happen here. And that is kind of why I reached out to Nikon. One, I had an itch to scratch for a full frame camera. And two, I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but it's either them or the Lumix brand from Panasonic that seem to be the only ones launching constant updates, either when something new gets released or just because, hey, we want to, or we kind of didn't get to something when we launched the camera. And I love that. That is so, so great. But come close. Let me ask you something. Does size matter? Because I don't mean to brag, but when I hold this and wrap my hands around it, and it feels good to hold. And hey, whoa, what did you think I was talking about, guys? Come on, I'm talking about the camera here. Anyways, this thing is a class above the ZV-E10. Even with a small rate cage on it and accessories and the kit lens and filters, it still probably weighs 60% less than this camera. This thing is huge. It is heavy. It weighs 620 grams for just the body, and with this 28-75 f2.8 lens, it totals to 1.1 kilos or nearly 2.5 freedom units. But like the new BMW M5, the added weight comes with added performance and features. A bigger body means a bigger sensor. I have a ton of information on my screen, from waveforms, all of the different settings that I need. It's awesome. And then all of these settings don't interrupt what I see on the screen. I still have a viewing area, and there's just so many damn buttons on this thing. It's incredible. I love it. You have the two function buttons on the front by the lens, so just right in here, you can just click through with your fingers. You have record, ISO, and metering exposure right on the top. Then you have two customizable control rings, plus the settings dial with 3 user slots to save both photo and video settings per user slot. Then I have the quick switch button to go from photo to video in one flick. Again, thank you, super handy. Then we have AF on the joystick, the menu button, playback buttons, and the zoom buttons over here. The best part is that for each custom user setting, you can set up these buttons to do whatever you like. I had to watch a couple of tutorials to figure out a decent setup. Once you start going through it, you can use the touchscreen, set everything up how you want. You can go into this custom area, you can hit controls, you can customize your controls like this. It's super, super handy to change everything right there. You can even set control locks. Everything that you save for photo, then everything you save for video all saves to that user profile. There's also dual SD card slots. So if you have multiple cards, you can set that up to save your images to one, or your JPEGs and your RAWs to separate cards, or all images to one and all video to another. And then you have your inputs and outputs all along the other side with a mic jack, a headphone jack, micro HDMI, yuck, but also USB-C, which is fantastic. Buttons aside, what is it like using the Z5II in the wild? Well, I took it to a couple of events. Let's cut to a Winnipeg winter and see how well the Z5II held up out in the snow, and actually indoors. Huh, that's different. First up, we went down to the Forks to try and get some low light footage and some photos, not really realizing exactly how dark it was going to be. But that's okay. The Forks keeps the party going inside and out during the winter season, so we headed down to the river trail. I was still able to get a couple of shots of some people going around, and it gave me some practice of shooting with the ZV-II in low light. Plus, they also had an oyster bar running all night long, and it was great to see these guys hard at work providing a unique culinary experience next to the river. This is something Winnipeg is known for in our food scene. We always do something unique by the river, whether it's 5-star dining on the river or something fun like this where you can have some shucked oysters next to a bonfire. On the inside of the Forks though, a couple of quick shots because one, I wanted to eat, and two, it's always great food in there, but tons of people, great vibes, always a spot to go to test out the camera. Now that weekend, we went to Festival de Voyageurs, and even though it wasn't the sunniest day, incredibly overcast, super cloudy, just pretty much natural diffusion the whole day long, it was a great day, perfect temperature, and since there wasn't any blue sky to separate from the snow, everything kind of blended in, making for a little bit of a tough shooting situation. But that's okay.
I've been in the news before. I always mention it anyway. Yeah, I know. Ready?
And then the last visit was to a little photography night hosted by the local shop, Don's Photo. So we're here at the Royal Aviation Museum of Western Canada, aka big old hall with a bunch of cool planes in it. And Don's Photo is hosting a photography night contest. I don't think I'm gonna win at all. There's a lot more professional people here than me. But the biggest thing is let's keep trying out the Nikon Z5II. I'm going to be taking B-roll. A lot of the B-roll though so far has been shot on the ZV-E10. And when it's shot with the Nikon, I'll put a little thing underneath. That way you know which is which. And for the most part, I'm either gonna shoot in the Cinebius Red profile because you can import all of those color profiles here. You can only use them in SDR. You can't use them with N-Log, and then the rest of the clips I've programmed the user 1 dial to be just regular old N-Log flat, easy peasy. So I'll switch between the two, either a Cinebius Red, maybe a couple of film tones that I found. I'll try it out. You know, it's nice and vintagey in here, so a vintage film look would look great as well. But anyway, thanks to Don's Photo for hosting tonight. I just came right from work, so if I look a little dysfunctional, that's why. It's gonna be a real fun night. So we're gonna be shooting B-roll and a bunch of pictures with this bad boy, and I will probably fill up the cart. Let's go shoot. Now, after 10 days and really only 3 big shoots, how did I find my time with the Z5II? Well, funny enough, it's pretty hard to do all of this with the day job. I've been up since 2 in the morning these past few days getting all of the B-roll, and this A-roll clip is being shot at 6:47 in the morning. Now, after 10 days and really only 3 shooting opportunities in those 10 days, it's kind of hard to do all of this with the day job. So I've actually gone ahead and set up a Patreon down below. And if you can throw a couple extra bucks over there, that would be greatly appreciated. All the money there is just gonna go to upgrading the lights in here, the mics, 'cause I have to get a new one. Everything will just be put back into the channel to help. But after my handful of shoots and after seeing the footage and grading it and going through it all, what are my final thoughts? Well, I really like it. There were a couple of things that I couldn't quite figure out in my time having it. The 3D autofocus, I figured out what it was. I couldn't quite figure out how to get it to work exactly the right way. The custom white balance, I know how to set it up on a Sony because you just go to the custom mode, shoot at something white, and it sets it. But on the Nikon, I couldn't quite figure it out. But again, that's on me. I just didn't have the time. To be honest, I kept the white balance in auto most of the time. And then there's this fun little thing where when you're in it, you can actually, when you're setting your white balance, you can roll the top dial and you can have it go to either keep warm or keep cool or just keep the overall atmosphere as you roll through. And having these wheels work in tandem has been incredibly helpful. But yeah, I just kept it in auto and I kept it in either keep white or keep warm depending on where I was. For example, at the Forks when I was outside, I went with the keep cool because it's winter. But then on the inside where it's a nice warm atmosphere, I switched it over to auto, but keep warmer colors. And they turned out great. I really enjoyed being able to switch between all of the different settings and all of the custom buttons. It was actually incredibly easy to just go back into the custom settings menu, change something around under the controls if I wanted to, and then save it out to another user preset and just make little changes on the fly just like that. It was incredibly easy to use between having the joystick and having a nice touchscreen menu. Super fast, super awesome. Now, next up are the picture controls. You can roll through and you can change it up between all of the ones you download from Imaging Space to the standard ones like flat and monochrome, and then all the play filters in between that kind of just are there and nobody really uses. These were incredibly awesome. The app that you use to load these on is actually just a website. I would love for Nikon to fix that and take all of the picture controls and put them into the actual Image Space app app so that it's just a one-stop shop, because I know the Lumix app, Fujifilm app, and even the Sony app all do it that way. And here it's kind of a convoluted two-step process. That being said, I also didn't like the image space app either. I couldn't get it to work. It would either drop connection with my Pixel 7 Pro or just wouldn't connect at all. I tried via Bluetooth, I tried via Wi-Fi. If they could make the app a little bit easier to use and combine the imaging space and the actual Nikon SnapBridge app, if they could just bring those two together, then perfect. That would make life so much better. I loved having a viewfinder. Oh my gosh, this was a game changer having one of these. I put it to the small setting so I could keep everything within the frame. I even customized my display as well so that it would show me my grid and my level and my histogram all right on there. Super, super handy. Lastly is the battery. Nikon only sent me one battery and I was freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to use my battery banks the entire time. Nope, wasn't the case. Even right now, this thing is on 1 bar battery, super red. I've been able to just keep snapping photos around the studio, take a couple extra shots of B-roll as I think of it. Wow, incredible. This battery lasted a full day of shooting in -10 degrees Celsius at Festival and at the Forks. It lasted for a few hours in a 24 degree aviation hangar shooting video and photos, which at the same time my ZVE10 went through 2 batteries in the same time it took to go through one of these EN-EL15C batteries. So that was impressive. If I liked all of the controls and all of the buttons, was there anything that I didn't like? Well, actually, there are a couple of flaws that we should address. First up, I did not like the shutter button. As a fan of mechanical keyboards and all things tactile, I did not like this shutter button. The shutter button actually on the ZVE10 is actually a lot crispier of a press than that of this button. Since the D-press didn't have that, actuation point that you're used to, like on a Switch, you can feel that actuation bump, whereas on here, I had to keep it in mechanical mode because I just wasn't getting used to it and really knowing exactly when I fully press down. Next, this top panel. These are pretty important buttons, and even if they're not important to you, you still want to reach them because you can customize them. If I go for the record button, that's fine. My finger reaches it easily. If I go for the ISO button, now my finger's starting to bend weirdly and you feel strain on the back of your hand. And then when you go for the metering button here, you're just making a claw with your finger and it's very uncomfortable, and sometimes you just don't know where it is when you have your eye up to the viewfinder. The other thing with that is that these are incredibly close to the power dial, and sometimes you may even just switch the camera on or off as you're reaching between the buttons. Luckily, the record button itself is a different shape from everything else up here, so you know what you're reaching for. But I would have loved if this button was moved over to either like on the center of the mode dial or next to the mic over here, or even where the picture control button is. That way these 2 other buttons would move to where these first 2 buttons are, making it a lot easier to operate. Next up, the screens. But I know what you're thinking, Matt, you said that you loved having a viewfinder and you said that the screen is pretty great. And it is, because the old version couldn't do this, which is fantastic. And while it is brighter than that of my ZVE10, it's still small, but big. What I mean by that is it's definitely a lot bigger, probably 50% bigger than my ZVE10, and it was crazy having them side by side, but it's still not as big as that awesome 4-inch LCD that the ZR has. It also only does the typical flip around. It doesn't do the up and down screen like how the A7 IV does or the Lumix S1IIs do. I would love to have that because there's always that time where you're shooting straight on like this and you just want that screen to come out this way to greet you. But no, instead you have to bring it around, look at it off center, kind of cradle it like this. I know those screens exist because that should be the de facto screen put onto any camera in 2026 going forward. Lastly, and this is incredibly minor, but if you're going to make a weather sealed camera and you have all of these nice flaps everywhere, I would like the flaps to actually open to the stuff I want and not just expose everything all at once. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you see right here, this flap for your microphone jack can actually open up and just show your headphone. Well, that's great for the people who prioritize headphones and not their microphones. Unless they come out with some sort of hot shoe adapter where they can plug in a digital microphone to the top like how Sony's can, and that's how I'm recording right now, you're going to be using the mic jack. So because of that, you can't just have just the mic portion open. You can have the headphone portion open, but to have the mic open, you have to have both exposed. I would love for them to, even just an accessory, come out with one that flips open the other way, so that way the headphone jack stays locked and covered and your mic jack becomes exposed, making it a heck of a lot easier to plug in a mic. The same goes for the HDMI and USB-C panel. This one, it's all or nothing. It's either all the way open or it's all the way closed. Neither half can operate on its own, and the whole thing has to be exposed. It's just incredibly done. There's so much room here where they could have each port in each corner and have a flap for each or a door for each, but this half and half vibe, I don't like it. Maybe it's different on their other cameras, but on here, I would love to see that addressed for the Z5 III. Overall, this has been an incredibly fun time to go out and shoot my city and get to know the Z5 II, because it's an award-winning camera from many publications. I was super pumped that they let me have it. I'm literally packing it up right after I finish shooting this A-roll. And while it has a little bit of flaws, it doesn't have open gate recording, which you don't really need. It was just incredible to use. Now, here's the thing. At $2,200 Canadian, this camera is certainly not cheap. And at $2,600 for the 24 to 50 kit version, that's nearly $1,000 more expensive than the ZVE10 Gen 2, not even this Gen 1 that I have. In comparison, when you look around though, it's actually still cheaper than some of its competitors. Take the S5IIX, which is around the $2,400 mark and pretty equivalent to this. It did get replaced by the S12E, which is now more expensive, so you could go older with the S5IIX, or you could go newer with the S12E, but then you're on either side of the price bracket. So again, very well priced. That S5IIX comes in at the $2,400 mark for the body and $2,900 with the 20 to 60 kit. So it's $300 more with a similar kit lens. On the Sony side, I was looking, I'm like, oh, an A7C II, that'll be a perfect match. Wrong. That thing is way more expensive. Holy smokes. You'd actually be looking at an A7 III or an A7S III or an A7 IV if it's on a good sale price. In Canon land, you're looking at either the R6 Mark II, which would be around the same price as this since the new R6 Mark III just came out. That again is a much higher price bracket. With all of that said, for the price you're paying, you're really between this and the older S5IIX. Those for that $2,400 mark, those are pretty much your two options from new. And I know how good this one now is, so hopefully I can try and get back in touch with Panasonic to go back to back and see how that camera compares to this, because this Z5 II is a great entry-level full-frame camera with tons of performance and unique features like its picture controls and red film looks, all in one compact, easy-to-learn package, other than a couple of things. You pair this with a few Z-mount lenses, either from Nikon or from Tamron, and you have an amazing creator-focused camera. It might be a little heavy, all full-frame cameras are, but I was so inspired to use this. I could do anything with it. It was perfect. It was so much fun to use. So, thanks for watching this video. Hit like and get subscribed, and check out my Instagram to see more photos from the camera as I go through a huge backlog from shooting with this thing. And again, huge thank you to my friends over at Nikon and Nikon Canada. Thank you for remembering who I even am. And I'm now going to pack this all back up the way it came to me and get it back and sent out to you, even though I will spend another few days editing this video.
Many months later. So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
It means a lot. I'm super excited to keep trying out more gear. If there's anything else that you want to see me try out from Nikon, like the ZF or maybe something a little bit bigger, let me know down in the comments. If there's a competitor you want me to try and reach out to, again, let me know down below. That's it for me. And now I have to get this all packed up and I have to go to work. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.